There we go. Glenn? Do I have a
There we
Glenn
go.
in the house?
There we
There
do.
we go.
That's better. Yeah, sorry about that. When saw yours, looks like it locked up there, so I went ahead and started playing the song for us. Figured that'd give you time to get back going.
Yeah, it kind of ate up my browser this time,
Now, am I hearing me from you, or am I hearing me from me?
I'm hearing a little static in the background.
That's probably
Oop,
the old
went
air
away for a
conditioner.
second.
Let me see here.
There we go.
And that was me muting the mic physically. That'll do it too. So how you been, Tony? Having a good week?
Good. Good. Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Was out driving around a little bit.
Sounds
Yes.
sounding good.
Sounds good. How about over here? My ridiculous isn't on at the moment, but you should still be able to hear something.
I got mine ridiculous.
Very cool. That way we can have you set that up over there. Let me check one thing over here. And who do we have out here still? All kinds of folks. We got Salvador, we got Rocco and Johnny. Everybody hanging out. It's good to see everybody. We're getting things started over here with the keys. We're going to probably start with a couple different... at one point, we're going to talk a little bit about some groove, and at one point, we're going to talk a little bit about some keyboard stuff and some different progressions, I think, would be a good thing. We were talking about rolling the dice, doing a couple of random progressions as they come up. But we'll see how it goes. I think, in the beginning...
The random five challenge.
The random challenge, yep. Rangify challenge. Random. We're going to roll them on up. We'll see what we get. It's going for the Yahtzee dice. We'll see here. We'll go with 5, 4, 2, 2, 1. So what do we think about that? So
Interesting.
it doesn't have to be in that order, but that's what we have here. We've got a 5, a 4, 2, 2, 1. So what about like a 2, 5, 2, 4, or sorry, 2, 4, 2, 5, 1. How about that? So we start with the D minor. So like a D minor F, then a D minor G,
D minor G. You saying throw the G into the 2?
no, like a D minor chord is a 2, and then the F is a 4, and then a D minor is a 2, and a G is a 5, and then C is the 1. So we're ending off with the 5, 1, so we get that pull back to the 1. So we're doing like 2, 4, 2, 5, 1, and then back around. And since it's 5 chords, it doesn't...
5.
Yep, you got it. The trick is that with 5 chords, it doesn't feel like it wants to resolve necessarily, because it usually wants to stay in either 4 chord or 8 chord or 2 chord. 5 feels kind of weird. So we could always just drop one of those. And, if you don't drop one of the 2s, for example, we could just use a 1, a 2, a 4, and a 5 in whatever combination we want.
Yeah.
That was nice too, though.
2, 4, 5, 4, 5, 1.
Sure. And we can consider that if we're starting with that 2, we could be considering this as a D Dorian kind of a progression, or if we're considering that one, then that we would be considering it in C major if we're coming back to that one. But if home is this D and we keep coming back to this D, then it sounds more like we're playing in D Dorian. All the white notes from D to D. That's all just C major pentatonic. The C, D, E, G, and A.
How about 1 4 1 4 2 5?
Yeah, yeah. I like it. All right. Now,
So
what about
1 4 5 and 2 can be played many ways.
and that was keeping that two minor, and all the others are major, but they don't have to be that way. We could choose to do other things. We could make that two major sometimes, or not sometimes in the song, but you could have that two as a major at somewhere in there. That would be borrowing that chord, and it wouldn't always sound right, but sometimes, because I mean, especially because we're using so much of that natural F, throwing that F sharp in there for that D major sounds kind of different compared to that. But if we went from that D, then to that F, see how it doesn't sound the same at all, right? And then the C.
So you're using a D major there?
Just for the D on that one. But that's the thing is, it doesn't quite feel like it fits, but it's something that you can hear or feel the contrast, and you feel where that builds tension there. And if that's a place that you want to put some tension, that's one way that you can do it. Another way would be to replace other ones, or put other things that are a little bit borrowed, not necessarily feeling as natural to the key in there.
Yeah, the D in major does give it a totally different.
It's almost like uplifting a little bit.
Yeah, it's like a switch in mood that you don't expect. Not D major. Go to the F. The D major to an F sounds
Now, is that going to the F major or the F minor? Normally, I would go to the F
D
minor.
major. Oh wait, is that fine?
Actually, maybe not. Well, D would have two sharps. So D would normally, if it was regular D major, it would have the two sharps. But we were actually using D as a major chord, but we were doing it relative to C major being the key that we were in. So we were playing with no sharps and flats, right? Originally, and then when we added in that D major chord, all we did was sharpen that F as a difference from what was going on. So this is the only white note that we changed to make it a different place, and that makes it almost like C Lydian that we're listening to there, because it's a sharp 4. But we wouldn't bring all the rest of the D major chord into that, I don't think, or the scale, I should say. It sounds kind of unsettled there because that's the tritone to the C. And that's where you can sit there and kind of feel kind of feels a little bit off balance almost, because you're going F major to D major, right? Now, if we listen to the difference between the normal chords that we would have in D major, right, where normally D major would just have the two sharps, the F sharp and the C sharp, so the normal diatonic chords. So every chord there has just the C sharp and the F sharp, and everything else is white notes. But that's bringing you from D major, E minor, F minor. One of the ones that feels the weirdest is the F sharp there, because that's an F sharp, A, and C sharp. Yep. Get a nice little climb there, yeah.
Would have never guessed that I'm actually in C in a mode.
It could be, that's the thing, is everything could be everything else. It's kind of tough to put labels on things, or at least if you do, it's hard to say this is this and not that, because there's a lot of different ways to talk about everything. Even those two, that F sharp and that C sharp, you know, that you could look at those as a D flat and a G flat, depending on what key you're in and what you're trying to look at.
Well, and like you said, it depends on what chords you go to. So, like, you know, this going between this chord and this chord, I guess we're figuring out what mode we're actually in.
Yeah, and in this case, what we were doing is that was all D major, so we were considering this as all relative to D major being the home chord. So D major, E minor, F minor, G major, A major, B minor. It would be C diminished, and that's where we would end up with that C, E flat, F sharp. Which definitely feels weird.
So this is the A diminished with the F sharp.
It would be that A fully diminished if we did it that way, but we were looking at it as the C, the E flat, and the G flat for C diminished, which would have the A on top if you wanted to put the A in. But we were just playing triads anyway. But it was if we were coming through that would be remember what we call the 7 chord? That's the asshole. So that would be the asshole in this case, where the D is major, so C would be the asshole. And actually, no. We would be doing it as C sharp, I guess, right? Because C sharp is in there, but not C. So C sharp's the asshole. That's the way that is. But even there, it's the that's why. It's C sharp diminished. So it's the C sharp, the E, and the G, because those would all be in the right key. I was wondering why we had that wrong one in there. That makes more sense. And that diminished would also have that B flat in there if we were doing the full diminished, or the A sharp. Always like the diminished. They're always fun. The way I usually find them is looking at that regular C major to start with, and then just dropping to a flat third, to the minor third, and then bringing that fifth down also.
So
that's the triad. Yeah, that's the diminished triad, so we're only using 3 of them. Normally the full one would also have that A on top, would be the full diminished, the 4-note chord, because then if for that same, this is all stacking minor thirds. So minor third from C to E flat, minor third up to the G flat, minor third to the A, and then another minor third brings you back to the C. And that's why you can roll the chord all the way up and down the whole keyboard, because you can just keep throwing the lowest note on top or the highest note on the bottom, and it becomes, that's how it goes through the 4 different inversions, which technically are 4 different chords. The C diminished, A diminished, G flat diminished, and E flat diminished.
Well, Mediculous says this is a C diminished 7.
Yep, exactly. It'll call all of them C diminished 7. If you now put the A on the bottom, it'll call that an A diminished 7, instead of calling it an inversion of the C diminished 7.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. A diminished
Same thing
seven,
if you keep
same
going
note,
if you keep going down,
A's on bottom.
and if you keep bringing that highness note down, it'll or the other way. Either way, it'll call it each of those four names, and so that's why there are only three different diminished chords, because otherwise it's just inversions, and each one is technically four different names, and there are only 12 keys. So
Yeah, that's a G. What does that say? G
G
diminished
flat,
seven.
G flat
G
diminished seven,
flat,
and the other one would be the E flat.
and that's technically the same notes
Yep.
as that,
hmm
as that.
Oh
That's
nope,
an
that one's got a missing one in there. That top one sounds like it's high. Were you doing C diminished or which one? C or C sharp?
Yeah, same notes. The C sharp or the C, E
And that's why I always like that one, because it sounds very fancy and it's not that difficult. It's just those same four notes, just kind of working them up or down, depending on what you're doing.
You can see the roll up. Can't play it. But
That's a good one to practice though, because that is a big way to get the dexterity up and get those moves more smooth. Because the smoother those get, then it's much easier to navigate, to get in between different areas where you're trying to play. If you're trying to play low at one point, then you're trying to play high at another point, you're able to move a lot more dexterously because you can do little sweeps like that. Even if you're just doing like regular major arpeggios, is another good way to practice that. Just going through 1, 3, 5 and octave. And then practicing those up and down a little bit, both hands, and that gets you different things that are good to practice to help you out. The other one would be, even beyond the triads, would be if you were doing sevens. So if you were doing a major seven, and that's basically throwing in the B as well as the C, the E, and the G, or you could do it as the dominant seven, where you're throwing in the B flat, C, E, G, and B flat. And you can also do it with the minors. There's basically being able to throw them all in and try them all and get comfortable with the way they work together. I always like the way that you bounce in with the chords too. Like just having, if you're playing something in C and you have you get a little bounce on the chord and you get something else kind of going on in the other hand. That's always nice. And that's where getting a progression like we did over there with the 2/4 and the 5 and the 1, getting something like that bouncing is always nice to be able to just sit down and do. It's the kind of thing I always wanted to be able to do, be able to sit down with the guitar or keyboard and be able to just do that. And I'm so glad that now I can kind of do that. It's like be able to just pull something out of nowhere.
oh, it bounce is the first thing I think about once I've established what chords I'm going to play.
Yep. That was one we were going to talk about at some point also, was some of the different warm-up things that I'll do is throw on a video on YouTube and just start playing along, whether it's a full concert from whoever or whether it's a playlist somebody threw together or whatever. A lot of times it's good to just try different things, whether it's a different style than I'm used to playing or whether it's different artists than I'm used to listening to, just to be able to get a bunch of other things into my ears and under my hands. Because I'll just throw something on, and while I'm listening, I'll just start picking out notes. And sometimes, it's mainly just about not being afraid to just try to hit some notes and see if they're the right notes or the wrong notes, because they're going to be one or the other. And if they're the right notes, that's great. You just kind of work along with those and feel it out from there. It's the best way. But it's how comfortable you get with working with your ear or listening to things, and how comfortable you can hear what different elements of the song are doing, what you hear the bass, what the bass is doing, if you can hear what the guitar is doing, focus on one thing or another thing and be able to shift your attention or your focus onto each of those things. It's helpful for mixing also to see what's overbearing in the mix or to see what's too quiet in the mix. You're able to just shift your focus from one point to another and see which things need to jump out more or need to, be tamed down a little bit. That's one where we haven't done any live mixing sessions yet, but we'll do that coming up here shortly too. Just get some things going on, whether it's in BandLab or we could even try to do some stuff with Cakewalk. Maybe probably do that as a pre-record at some point. Get something going on for recording some stuff in Cakewalk and going through the process a little bit. We've already talked about Creative Sauce and his different videos, and if people have questions about Cakewalk and all that, that's one of the great places to start. Would be with him because Creative Sauce has so many good videos. Yep.
Yeah, that's where I send everybody.
It's a great place to start. And again, if we were to show stuff on us doing stuff live, it would more just be getting in there and kind of how we do our process in there, whether it's in Cakewalk or whether it's in BandLab or whether it's in Reaper or whatever we use. There's different ways of doing things in all the different DAWs, and it's good to get familiar with how people do things in other DAWs as well, because you might see somebody using a feature or doing things in a way, process flow, workflow that you really like, and it might be better than what you were doing. And at that point, you might say, hey, maybe I want to switch over to that one because that's looks like a better way or a way that fits better with the way I make music. So.
Oh, and if anybody has a good YouTube resource for Reaper tutorials, send them my way. It's a DAW that I'm boning up on.
Yep. And that's one where typically my experience lately has been watching Jason do stuff in Reaper, and it is definitely good to see the workflow and how quickly he's able to throw things together.
I feel like I've learned 50% of it just watching Jason.
Yep. And also just understanding how they would, how you would expect them to design the workflow, and how, from one DAW to another, there's certain things that are going to be different, but there's just, certain things that really make a lot of sense. It's like they did this way because, this is how they do it in other DAWs as well, or this is, similar enough to how it's done in other DAWs where it makes sense when you just look at the interface. And that's also why I recommend getting familiar with other DAWs.
It does follow a standard workflow. When it comes to DAWs, it follows the rules of the DAW.
And that's the important thing. What's the first rule of DAWs? Follow the rule of DAWs.
Standards.
Have standards.
View, console view.
There you go. Nice. That would be good, yeah. Well, I'd probably put something together like the first 5 minutes in Cakewalk. Like if somebody just installed it, like here's the first 5 minutes of what you should do to get stuff looked at, to get things to where you're ready to go in a song. Maybe we'll do one like that.
Before you start trying to shove tracks into a DAW, get to know the interface. Get to know what windows and views that are there and which ones can be there. Learn the interface before you start trying to shove tracks in.
Same thing with effects.
Otherwise,
you can go overboard crazy with effects and adding things into the effects chain and tweak things for days and weeks and months, and you still don't have things mixed right in the first place. So that's where it's important to go to the basics first, and you can start adding effects later and get everything built up. But do things like add something or change something and then see how it is, and then change something and then see how it is. Don't change 15 things and see how you like it, and then change 15 more and see how you like it, because you don't know what you changed that you liked and what changed it the way you don't like.
That's a good point, because it's just like troubleshooting. If you put too many variables in at once, you never really figure out what you're trying to figure out. You make a small change, see the result. Make another small change, see the result. Don't change 10 things at once, otherwise you won't know what actually did what.
Yep. And that's important. And that's the thing, is troubleshooting is kind of where I come from. So that's one of those that it's built into the mindset of how I approach things. And it just always is, try to simplify things down as much as possible. Same thing with if you're working on an effect chain, or if you're trying to try new hardware and you've got 15 things around your house that you'd love to hook up all together. It's like, I want to use this for this, and I want to use this for that, and I want to use this for that, rather than trying to go one big signal chain and getting everything all plugged into everything all at once and then trying to figure out why it's not working. Just take the simplest case, like in this case, take a guitar and plug it into an amp and see if you can make noise and get to where it sounds right, or sounds like you can tweak it in and it sounds good. And then say, okay, now I want to try this effect. Okay, now add that into the equation. Get that working. Okay, and then the next step. And you go one step at a time instead of trying to go, okay, I plugged this into that, and then that output into that thing over there that's sometimes on, and then that goes over to there, and then comes around here, and then I plugged into the output auxiliary for this, and it gets over to that. It's like trying to do all that at once can definitely be too much. So just try to simplify.
Especially when you're new to the DAW. If you're just trying out a DAW for the first couple of times, don't go trying to do effects chains and complicated things. Get comfortable with the DAW, get comfortable with the setup and getting the tracks to sound the way you want. Think about mixing and effects and all that second phase. After you've gotten comfortable with the interface, then
That's
it's
also
a good time to do effects chaining and things like that.
that's also where we talk about the importance of a clean signal. And the importance, I mean, not everybody does, but recording a clean signal in, especially like minimal effects on the signal coming in, because you can always add effects onto it, but you can't really conveniently extract effects off of something if they're already on the track. So it's fun to play around with the tracks, play around with the effects that are in there. But when I'm doing the recording of my actual playing, I'm not listening to my playing with the effects on it. I'm listening to myself playing clean, knowing what the effect will make it sound like after. And that's where you do it a couple times.
It helps you to focus on your clean sound. If you are getting a good clean sound and say a little bit of noise, being able to reduce that noise at that point, recognizing that, you're going to have a harder time realizing if you have a noisy mic if you're pumping effects through it at the same time that you're trying to figure out whether your clean mic is noisy.
Yep. And it can also be a little bit extra signal overhead, so you could end up with too much noise or too much gain at the end of the process, and it's because you pumped in too much at the beginning, and that's where, again, keeping it down, keeping it well behaved until you have everything kind of slotted out where it's all going to be and which instruments are going to be there, because a lot of it has to do with being well behaved in the sound range. Like as a bass, I'm kind of spoiled because I usually have that whole bass range to myself, so I can just do whatever I want down there and nobody's interfering. And I can come up top if I want to, but normally you're just hanging out down there holding it down. Whereas if you're one of the higher instruments, if you're a rhythm guitar player or a keyboard player or what have you, you've got to be able to fit in.
Especially if you're miking your signal, like a guitarist who's miking an amp to get his guitar sound versus one sending a signal, you're going to deal with different noise situations there.
Yep. Sometimes you'll go with a DI box. I mean, some people have really good pedal rigs and they'll do a DI. Some people go into the amp and you want the signal mic'd out of the amp, go from there. Some people have 7 different guitars that they bring on stage and, set them all up. And, I wouldn't want to have to tune 7 guitars at the beginning of a gig myself, but that's just, one of those things that, that's what you want to do. That's what you want to do. This song is this guitar. This song is that guitar. That's fine.
If you got 7 guitars, you probably got a guy to tune them for you before the show.
True. Me, I was always more of a, have one guitar, and actually I don't really usually even have a backup, or especially with a bass. I only have one bass in the house. I have a guitar, then I have a guitar I could bring as a backup. I could bring my SG, and I could bring the Dean as a backup if I needed to. But I don't realistically play guitar on stage very much. I mostly play bass when I'm on stage, though I occasionally play a guitar song or a keyboard song or sing, depending on what we're doing. But we'll get more of that as things go on.
When he plays guitar, he drinks Dos Equis. He's the most interesting bassist in the world.
I have been known to occasionally use the bottle as a slide, because that's one where there's a couple of songs. Right, there's a few songs actually where. I'm trying to remember what song it is now. I don't have the bass plugged in right now, but
I love the glass slide. When I bought my first guitar, and I bought my first couple of picks, the only other thing that I wanted was a glass slide.
Yeah, glass slides are cool, and metal slides too. I mean, I don't have anything against either of them, but just being able to use any solid object as a slide is fun. And the song I was thinking of is actually the whole song is in E, A, and D. So it's like everything. It's like ROCK in the USA, for example. ROCK in the USA, I think it's all majors, but just E, A, and D. Major, right? Yeah, E major, A major, D major. But the main idea is that I can play it with one hand. I don't need my fretting hand at all because 3 of the open strings on the bass are E, A, and D. So I can just play the middle 3 strings. And for the bass line, I can just get away with playing just those for a while. So a lot of times I'll reach over and grab a drink from my beer, and Joey will look over while we're playing the song, and I'll be drinking with one hand and playing the bass line with one hand. And he goes, "Oh, you suck."
I think some songs were strategically written so musicians could grab their beer.
That's one of them. And then there's ones where if there's like a drum break in the middle or whatever, or everybody stops playing. Because that's another one where we might take a break in the middle of that one and do, no instruments, just have everybody sing a little a cappella part in there where everybody's just singing the anthem ROCK in the USA. But then we'll do other ones as well, different anthem songs. Some of them we mixed and do like a montage or a mix up.
That was John Mellencamp, ROCK in the USA. John
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, I played I play it, I sing it. I don't even know who does it. That would be a good guess though. It does sound like his style. I was also thinking Dark Side.
Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band. Love their sound.
Yeah. Because that's another good one. That also has a similar sound to that. Probably also similar chords and all that. It has similar feel. So that's one that you could actually mash those up or whatever. I mean, there's good stuff that you can do with a lot of different songs. Rafferty was a good one.
And I like when rock incorporates good piano. Piano rock, that's straight to my heart.
Yeah. What about one of the ones I always liked, Before They Come for My Piano? It'll come to me in a minute. Shooting Star? Yeah, probably Shooting Star.
Shooting Star, that sounds like pop.
That one is more pop, actually. but there's Before They Come for My Piano. There was one that also goes the 2 songs together. I'm so bad with titles, though. It's nope. It's not that song. We'll figure it out later. But I could figure it out even what notes it was before I would figure out what the name is. That's the way that usually works. But I think from what we were doing before, though, that little D minor to the F major, I think was kind of cool. Before, though, that little D to the F. D minor, F major, A minor?
D, F, what was the third?
D, F, A minor. And then C. Because that way we're doing basically a 2, 4, 6, 1, and the 2 and the 6 are both minor.
Yep.
And so we're keeping it all with the white keys. And we could put the 1 on the top at the end of it too, so that you get it to up to the 6 or up to the 1.
Oh, if you start with the 1 and you bounce the F quick.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Somber.
Mm-hmm. And if we leave that 1 out of there and put in the 3 instead, then it gets like as sad as you can because it's a minor 3, so you get that E minor in there too instead of the C. How about that was D and E at the beginning, right? D minor, E minor.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. A minor, E minor. Because the drop from that 3 to that 2, going from the end of the 1 measure.
I feel like I want to shove the C in the middle there somewhere.
We could take that F out
The E.
instead of that F in the middle there. That could be the C. So like start from that the 2 to the 1.
Oh, the D to the C and then to the A to the E sounds nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that does have the 3 2 1, but
Yeah, and
the
it
3 is at the end of that measure, and the 2 1 is in the beginning of this one, so it gives that rolling feel to it also.
Yeah, it throws you off a little bit, but not in a like disharmonious way.
Mm-hmm. Right, right.
Okay, so 2, 1. So that's a 2 1 6 3.
Yep. And everything except the 1 are all minor. So we're using all of the usual minor chords. The 2, the 3, and the 6.
That is a different progression for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't normally start on the 2.
Right, sure.
To do so like makes me start really thinking different approach.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's also where it's important to explore all the different chords that are in the key. It's just that we tend to explore major chords so much that, like, the 1, 4, and 5 get explored a lot, and the minor chords, the 2, 3, and 6 don't get explored as much. So I try to throw in a lot of minor chords when I'm trying to mess around with stuff like this.
See, and the irony is I feel like I've explored the shit out of minor for like the last 30 years.
Nice. Major time then.
Yeah, now it's major time.
Yeah, so 1, 4, and 5. Let's get it on. And throw any of the other, basically any other chord in there with those 3. So get the 1, 4, 5, and, right? So 1, 4, 5, and 2 is what we did a minute ago. But 1, 4, 5, and 6 is the one that we talked about so much before, because there's so many different combinations of those.
Well, and
But
this
you could.
That one goes up nice.
Mm-hmm.
It really steps up nice.
Definitely.
Or actually, one more note.
Mm-hmm.
That's resolution.
Nice. That's the one. We didn't have our graphic up behind us there. Had to fix that. Much better. Thanks, Sal. There's some nice stuff with those, and that's where I like the different progressions and just trying to figure out little pieces of things, or even little nuggets. When you start getting a progression like that, sometimes it's a matter of flipping it around and saying, wait, I like those chords, but not necessarily the way they're going together right there. It's like maybe this one before that one, or this one here. I mean, those I really like that you just played, but in general.
If I start with a different inversion on the C, if I start the C with this inversion.
Mm-hmm. Nice. It's got good voice leading. Mm-hmm.
I like it with that inversion. That's some Billy Joel kind of shit.
Yeah, man. And that's something that gets you out of your box, right? It gets you out of your comfort zone of where you would normally be playing, and that's where it does bring up fresh ideas.
I started with the root,
Mm-hmm.
started the C with the
Mm-hmm.
root, and it bounces up to the 4, nice,
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of work. Bounces to the 5, less work, it's just a slide. 6,
Yep.
same thing. So starting with that inversion makes the next 3 chords all just a slide.
Yeah.
But starting with this inversion,
You have to do that jump at the beginning, yeah.
yeah, when I changed the F here, now the F becomes the high note, and the melody's hiding here.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. You want to unbury it and keep the melody on top if you can, sure.
And it
Because
actually,
your ear does kind of jump towards the highest note. Hi, you see me. You can, if you'd like to be played, you can DM songs to Andrify, and she'll consider them for another show. We'll be playing them another time then. Tony and I mostly talk for this show and play some stuff.
Yeah, DM Amplify. We'll check it out.
Mm-hmm.
So the other inversion, if I was to do it, would
Now, actually, that way it does still rise the whole time, but what about doing those first two the same way you just did, but then go down low for the next two? Like low and then back up a little.
oh yes, that makes the G actually feel like it is dropping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can work with that.
Yeah, I like that.
Those are the glorious chords. You stick with chords like that in like a major scale like this, it's hard not to make something that doesn't sound uplifting.
Yeah. And again, just switching the order of them can make that bounce sound totally different. Because the first time it did really feel like it was continuous motion up, which is good. I like that. That's even more uplifting. But when you do that partial lift where you go, one chord and then up, and then go back down
Well,
below
yeah,
and then back up.
The G kind of fakes you out because you hear the C go to the F. You feel like you're going up, and then all of a sudden, when I play the G in root, it's like I'm still technically going up on the scale chord, but the sound feels like it's coming below you.
Yeah.
It makes that G feel like it's pushing from below.
Keeping everything locked in.
Little resolution there on the F to the G at the end. Oh, look at me now, greatest American hero.
There it is. Nice. Oh, don't look at anything red or you lose your superpowers. Nice. And that's the thing, is there are only so many progressions. So a lot of the stuff that you've heard before, you'll hear them in stuff that you're playing.
Yeah, and just a little variation, depending on how you resolve with that progression. You can play that progression like 10 different ways and make different sounding songs.
Absolutely.
Still resolving the F to the G though at the end there. It's a habit of mine.
Yeah, it's a tough one to break, though. I mean, that's a good
well,
sound.
whenever I'm in that key, it's like where I go to like settle.
That comfort zone. Gets you right back home. What was I looking for over here?
Anytime I'm in C, I'm always trying to find a way to slide to A.
Sure. And that's a good one. I mean, that's, being able to slide to that parallel minor definitely helps. Now, the other thing to think about that'll open up stuff as well, replacing in the same way that you replace that C with an A, that's 3 steps behind it. You could do the same thing, replacing the F with the D minor, or the G with the E minor.
Oh, well, if you're talking A to D, that's my jam.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of ways I can, that progression,
Mm-hmm.
the A to the D kind of sets the opening mood. But when you go to the G, whether you go up to the C or whether you go back to the A,
Sure.
you can go either way depending on like going back to the A just kind of gives you like a double verse.
Now with
Going
that
up to
though,
the C kind of pushes you into the progression.
now starting from the A though, and then to the D below it, right? And then you're saying the G. For the G, just bring everything down 1, right? So you're still using the G on top, so that you're right near where you just were, right? So from the A to the D, and then you're just bringing that A down to the G, and you're bringing the D and the F down to the B and the D. So you're putting all that on the bottom, so it makes the whole thing sound like it's still walking down. And then the C can either be the bottom or it can come back up to the top if you want to get the C back.
Yeah, if I
Sounds more
start-
like it's coming around, yeah.
Yeah, it does sound like it's coming back around to the A much. Have to get used to playing it with that. I'm so used to playing that with that
Root
root
positions.
inversion. I've
Yep.
done it for 25 years. It's almost like burned in my head.
And that's why it's really important to work on those, because and there's not many, since we're only dealing with triads, there's only 3 ways to play them, right? So you've already got one way down, the root way. Now it's just getting those other ones worked in and figuring out where they make sense, and that really helps for arranging. And like you said, voice leading, making it feel like things are going up or going down or cycling around, whatever you're trying to accomplish in the music.
And again, I'm basically just trying the 3 different inversions on the starting chord. So like A, whether I'm doing A in root position or A in first inversion, right? With the E low.
What's that?
That's first inversion.
With the ELO would be second inversion.
Oh, second.
Yeah, basically think about throwing the lowest one on top. So like take the root position, then throw the lowest one on top. So you've got the.
Got you. So if the 5th is the starting note, then I'm in second inversion. So
Correct.
Root,
Yep.
root inversion, second inversion, first inversion.
Yep. And then once you got all 3 of those, that's all there are. So any of the chords that you know how to play, you can just get comfortable with how those spacings look, because you'll notice that when you're going to put the C on top, for example, if you took a C chord and then you put the C on top, you know that the extra space is on the upper end, right? And then if you do the other one where you got the G on the bottom and the E on the top, then you got the space between the G and the C, so the space is on the bottom, the extra space, compared to your usual major chord.
And the cool thing about starting with these different inversions is it kind of leads where I want to go on the next chord. So if I know I'm going A to D and I'm starting this way, D feels like it should go this way. A to D. But if I'm starting A this way, D feels like it should. Yeah, that's the D I want to go to because it's right next to it. It's a very different sound though. Like listen to these two. That's very different than. They are the exact same chords starting with a different inversion.
That's an excellent point right there too, though, as far as songwriting goes, using both of those at different points. So instead of just repeating the same phrase over and over, that could be a little call and response right there, where you're doing one thing in one spot and like it may be louder, and then the other one you're doing in the other spot and maybe quieter, and those become a whole part. That gives you the opportunity
to have a mood change without a chord change, because you do change the mood.
Yeah, and even the timing. You know, you could. I mean, not that you have to be flexible with timing, but you can even slow down or speed up things like that, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, if I'm playing like this, I'd be doing like.
Yep.
Bitch of a time with that.
One thing that's pretty cool about the
that's an easy shift. This to this.
The other thing is that the fact that they're also spaced so nicely, like D, F, A, and then A, C, E. If you just kind of if you just use like one hand for one of them and the other hand for the other one, you're basically like right there. Like the highest note of one is the lowest note of the other one.
Oh, dude, that's some Looney Tunes shit.
Yeah, some polka stuff going on there.
Oh, totally can hear the polka there. You're gonna get me to learn fucking polka, huh?
Well, that and ragtime, because ragtime's another good one for learning syncopation and getting the off timing going, where your hands are, one hand is hitting and then the other hand is hitting, and they're going back and forth rather than hitting all at the same time. And just like with when you finally get the hang of picking with guitar, like when it starts getting smooth, all of a sudden you can pretty much like double your speed when all of a sudden the picking starts to feel smooth going up and down, rather than just all downstrokes or all upstrokes when you're first starting out. So same kind of thing happens when you really start to get flowing with some of these.
And ragtime and honky tonk are all about the left-right dynamics.
Yeah. Country also has that bounce where a lot of times you're just going with the root, and then you're going to be going to the 5 under is when you're doing the bounce. Or you're playing in C, and then the walk up. And then that walk up was just G, A, B, C. And then once you get that feel of that little bounce down there. Oh, Slither. Yep.
Joe made it home safe. Good man.
Back from the sports event. Because we got the trumpet going.
That little riff, that da-da-da-dun-da-dun.
That's an arpeggio. That's a major arpeggio, and G major I was doing that. And then the last two are just the DG.
So
1, 3, 5, and octave.
Oh, so easy. Oh my
Yep.
God.
And then I hit them all. And then a lot of times they'll just shift it up to an A major, so you got to get that C sharp in there.
See, you know what I think my problem is sometimes is I think there's more notes going on than there are, because I was thinking like that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's really just 1, 3, 5 octave.
Yep. And octave is a lot of times the last note that people will guess. Like I'll hear people trying to figure out a song, and I know I can hear that it's the octave, so I know it's coming. And then I hear them play it, and I'll hear them play like the 7. They'll be like it's around here somewhere, and it's like because they won't. Like it can't be that one because I already played that one. But it's like no, it's that one. Same thing where you can double notes. There's some bass lines that sound really really busy, and all I'm really doing is like hitting the one note, and then I'm double hitting the second note, triple hitting the third note, so it's like boom, ba-dum, dum, da, 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 getting something like that going where it sounds a lot more complicated than it is.
That's how you sound so fast.
That it helps. Plus, hammer-ons help too. That's another hammer-ons and pull-offs. Yeah, absolutely. I cheat all the time. And one of the big ones was I don't have the bass plugged in, but one of the big ones that I saw from I think it was from Scott's Bass Lessons, where he was doing one with do the other one. With the one pattern.
And if you're a bassist out there and you're not subscribing to Scott's Bass Lessons,
then you got problems. Yeah.
Is he still running those contests? He was giving away a ton of killer equipment at one point, wasn't he?
He was, and he brings them up occasionally. Like it depends on what he's giving away at any given time. But he did one at that point. He was giving away, a $3,000 bass, another $3,000 bass, and just I think it was probably 7 or 8 bases in total, as well as like, other things, memberships, all that kind of stuff.
He's trying to get to like the 1 million subscriber mark and big promotion with like tons of killer equipment.
Yep. The move that I was thinking of was usually there's that like 1 3 1 3 5 that I'll do where I'm just doing like as far as relative frets. I'm at the 5th fret, so this would be 5 7. This would be like on the frets 5 7 5 7 9, but instead of doing 5 7 9, he would actually do like 5 7 5 7, and then where you're doing like hitting this one and then sliding up and sliding back down at the same time. So, and you can actually kind of hear it. And that's one of those little moves that like the first time I saw it, I was like, wait, no way, because that was way too easy and it sounds way too fancy. But
well, easy for you guys. You guitarists and bassists are lucky that the slide technique is so natural with that instrument. With the keyboard, unless you get comfortable with the pitch wheel and you program that, sliding on the keyboard can be.
It's tricky for sure. I mean, that's where we're playing trombone, for example, and that's where one of the ways I would suggest doing it is in A minor with the trombone. And that way you're doing the A, the C, D, E, and the G, right? But anytime you're hitting that G, you can use the bend up to get to the A, right? And that gets you back to the home key. So you're playing an A minor. So you can always do that. Also, anytime you're hitting the C, you can always bend it up to the D. And you can always bend the D up to the E. So if you can always bend up on the C, the D, and the G. And that gives you a little bit of, like, those spots are always good when you're playing in that key.
That's where knowing when to bend is useful. That's the other part of my brain that hasn't picked up is where to do the bends. Like with guitarists and bassists, they tend to naturally like bend their strings at the right notes. Whereas with keyboards, sometimes it doesn't make sense to me where the bend should happen. Mm-hmm. Or I'm playing something where it's like I can't free up a hand to go hit this wheel.
Yeah, and that's where some of them it would even be. Again, depends on what you're playing, but some of the different patches might have it where the harder you hit, rather than making the note louder, it actually bends it up depending on what you're playing.
Yeah, that's why I want to try those MIDI rings, because
I
think with that MIDI ring and actually moving my hand forward and backwards, I would try to bend more, as long as I can keep using the hand to play.
The other thing is that a lot of the bending that you would see people do would be when they're soloing. And when they're soloing, they're usually not necessarily having to be the guy holding down the chord. So it's a lot more, it's in a band situation as opposed to just one guy sitting with a piano doing stuff. So that might be also a place where it hasn't been as much into what you're doing if you're used to playing the whole song yourself, right? Like people who are used to soloing and playing the song by themselves, they can't focus as much on what they're doing solo-wise because they're busy holding the chords down. But if you had a whole band with you, they're doing the whole song around you, and you can focus all your energy on just that solo. And that's where that solo and the bend wheel, like the left hand just becomes part of that bend wheel, mod wheel, while you're soloing up and down with the right.
And that's when you can really appreciate your instrument. When you are in a band and you can just focus on your instrument and not try to be a one-man band, you get to really play your instrument.
It's a big transition too, especially, I mean, I'm still most used to playing bass in a band, so I'm still used to being the guy who's holding down the bottom. And so to try to play guitar, all of a sudden it's like it feels weird to not play. Like when it comes to the one, like I'm used to always playing on the one because I'm playing the bass. That when the one comes, I don't have to play if I'm playing guitar. I can play on the offbeats. I can play solos. I can even sit out for a couple measures.
Have you ever filled the role of a rhythm guitarist who occasionally fills leads? Like
Sure.
you know the rhythm guitarist who will throw in some licks here and there because to fill things out.
Oh yeah, and that's where that's where when we were talking before about triads, that was huge because that's one where observing a band like again the Grateful Dead is I always come back to them, but just seeing any band really with two guitar players with interplay back and forth,
and they complemented each other.
And they complemented each
was
other.
the lead, neither was the rhythm. They were both kind of always covering each other's ground.
Now, I always saw Jerry's doing the leads and Bob as kind of, doing more of the backing, but at the same time, most of what he was doing behind Jerry wasn't just sitting there comping chords like you might expect, but doing tasty little fills like you were saying. And that's where those triads are important and the inversions are important because the inversions, because you can be in this position, or this position. And again, on the guitar, you can be in any position anywhere along the neck. I can find you an A chord anywhere. I can find you a B chord anywhere. Like you can, that's part of how Caged helps you out. And knowing the movable chord shapes and being comfortable with where the notes are on the neck helps you to be able to pick out a major or minor or whatever chord flavor that you want in any position on the neck. For the same reason that you were just talking about the inversions on the keyboard, where it might feel more comfortable to bring that F chord to this inversion because it fits better with where the other chords are. Same kind of story with the guitar as well. So that's where and just being able to and knowing what he's throwing in is the other key part there. So just watching somebody analyze that and seeing where like if it's all root 3/5, root 3/5, like you'll see a lot of that where a lot of the notes that people will be pegging on are going to be either arpeggios or just the straight major or minor triad chord tones because they're just those help hammer home what key we're in. And so like the bass is usually going to be hitting that low note. So we're going to usually have that low root always handled. So a lot of times guitars, they'll do that first inversion chord. So on that C chord, instead of playing a root position, they'll be playing it in the first inversion because they know that the bass is going to be handling that low C.
Your choice of claw on a bass or a guitar will be relative to like how you want to play that part. Just like I'm trying to decide on this inversion or that inversion, which one makes it easier or sounds the way I want it to sound as I progress. The claw, your starting claw on the guitar is the same challenge.
Yep. And a lot of times, depending on what you're doing,
I mean,
some songs make more sense to do
change
this
your
way than that
claw.
way.
You guitarists, you guys are pretty quick at like changing claws on the fly. It's easier to say than the keyboard sometimes, but you're looking for a certain sound from this chord to that chord.
Right. And then sometimes there's the same thing where, for example, if we were to look at the claw on a keyboard of the C major chord, right? So we'll call that the 1-3-5, like the C. You're just hitting those. That same claw, when you slide it up one note, you're getting the D minor. Same claw where you're going the same number of white notes apart, but it's a different flavor now. That major chord is now a minor chord, but you're playing it the same. It feels the same. It looks the same.
It still feels exactly the same to me. I just move my hand like you guys do on the neck. Move up and down.
And for us, for guitar, the one claw. Let me go to the bigger one here. The one claw that we use for minor, we call it the A minor movable shape, right? And that would be the one where it's a bar on, like, we're not playing the fattest string, but all the rest of them we're kind of barring across.
Wow. A minor is that easy for you?
And, well, these two and that one.
Oh, that does look like a little work there.
But
Your
that's not
clock
the only.
kind of
That's not
looks
the
like
only A
mine.
minor. To do an A minor, an easier way, you could just go right here and here. That's A minor on the fifth fret because now you're playing all the strings and just this one at this fret, and that's an A minor 7.
So
But
the
the
middle
idea was
really
though
doesn't
that
do anything there, huh?
this A major shape, or sorry, A minor shape, if I bring it down a string to here, that same claw is now major. So this would be, if I do on the third fret here, like G major, and this would be C minor. So like a major shape and a minor shape, even though it's the same claw, just moving it down one string changes it from major to minor.
It's funny. It actually looks like more work for you to go major to minor on the guitar than for me.
It also depends though, because I can
Piece to
also
take.
see right here, like if I play just the top half of that, or like just play four strings, leave the fat strings out of it, this would be major. Where I'm doing this would be fifth, fourth, third, and third for the frets. So 5, 4, 3, 3. But if I were to just do all three of these on there as the bar and just that one, then that's minor. So the minor is easier by leaving that one out. So it's either a stair step a case like that, or it's like that bar and this one to be minor. So that's a nice easy switch. So you don't have to play as many notes as the
So
thing. You can just do little triads.
Your majors are requiring a little more finger work
It depends. In that position they did.
for that particular chord.
Also for like for example, minor 7 is one that I like a lot, and you've probably seen me do like the little spooky riff where you get that little minor 7, and that's actually just a bar going across all of them, and you're hitting two other notes in here. In this case, this is not C but F, I guess. F minor 7. And then it's actually an easier when you go to the next string down, the fatter string. If I want to go down here, this would now be B flat minor 7, and it's just the whole bar and just one note out ahead of it. But the main point was just that you can use the same claw on two different string sets, and you get from a major to a minor, and that some of the claws and string sets are just very easy little straight bars that you can use, whether it's major or minor, depending on which position you're in. The major bar would be from the movable G shape, because the movable G shape, if I was playing it up here, you'd be playing, it's kind of a bit of a stretch, but if I was playing it as a C chord, in the G shape, I'm playing these two on the 7th fret, or sorry, the 8th fret and the 7th fret, and then this bar back here at the 5th fret. But I can just play that little bar and play 3 of these strings, and that's a C major triad. So I can just play those anywhere I want. That's a C major triad, then D major, E major.
Now you're plucking right now, right?
Right, I'm plucking, sorry, with 3 fingers.
Yeah. Now
I play fingerstyle mostly, but yeah.
If you were playing finger style and arpeggiating across the strings,
Yep.
and your choices of the chords that you're going to do on the neck, because an arpeggio lends itself to certain chord structures more than a strum.
Right, exactly. And that's why certain songs like
it's more as complicated to play on the right hand as the left hand when you're doing that versus if you're just focused on your neck and the strum is just a beat.
there's definitely more to it, and that's where it's sometimes it's the rhythm that's the complicated part, sometimes it's the fretting, but it depends on whether you're trying to play fast notes or whether you're trying to get a complicated rhythm going. But the main thing is just the different claws for different things. Now on the bass, I don't really do much of the claw stuff. It's more just being comfortable with being able to, for me, a lot of sliding. I do a lot of sliding on the bass. Not everybody does, but I guess it's one of those things where I guess I got used to it from playing fretless for a little while, and it's just too much fun to, and it's not that hard, but you have to get used to it because the strings can cheese grater up your fingers a little bit if you're not used to it.
Yeah.
So you got to toughen
Those
up a
are
little.
Ropes.
Yeah, they're bridge
Play with
cables. They're
ropes.
definitely fat. Definitely fat, especially on that 5 string, because that low B string is really fat. That is what makes the difference there. But even that's also where if I don't have time to practice as much or play as much as I would want to, some of the times I'll just pick up the bass and just kind of play really rough for a few minutes and do a lot of sliding, like, and by doing that, I'm roughing up the plucking fingers because I'm doing a whole lot of, with the plucking, and I'm roughing up the fretting fingers because I'll take like the first finger on one string, go woo, and then I'll do the second finger on another string and woo, and like rough up each of the fingers individually by sliding, halfway up and down the neck. And that's just one that, in just 2 minutes, I can really toughen my fingers up as if I played for an hour. And, I didn't learn as much as I would have learned if I was, really focusing on learning something new for an hour, but it will keep your fingers in shape. Because if you go too many days without playing at all or without playing enough, you can lose the calluses and not be able to play as much anymore.
And you guys you're toughening up two things. Guitarists and bassists are toughing up the skin on the finger, plus the muscle exercise that the finger's doing. You guys have a double-edged battle. For me, all I got to do is really get my fingers warmed up. My keyboard does not wear out my tips.
Well, that was one where it doesn't wear out the tips, but I used to have problems with endurance on the keyboard from just playing, or I guess it could be from playing like big stretched positions maybe, where you'd feel hand fatigue even from that.
And it's harder to feel a note if the front of your finger is numb because you're all calloused up from playing for hours. If you can't feel, it actually does affect your playing.
And in some cases on the guitar, it's helpful if you can't feel. In some cases, where you're actually using that as if it's like a slide, when you just and you just slide with, or not even feeling the pain. Like the callus makes it so that there is no pain. It just feels like there's just nothing there, or it feels like you ever have what was it, rubber cement? Remember that rubber cement or glue on your fingers or whatever, and it's like you could feel something there, but there's something on it. Yeah, same kind of a thing where it feels like there's an extra, something protecting the edges of your fingers or the tips of your fingers from what you're trying to do.
Tony Iommi. I have a robot finger.
And actually, with Scott from Scott's Bass Lessons, he plays with a glove on his fretting hand, and for him, it helps him where he actually not like a mitten, but it's like a really thin glove. The idea is it has to do with a condition that I believe he has where he would. His hand would like freeze up on him if he doesn't have something that's in contact with it. So by wearing the glove, just something touching the skin on the hand makes it so that when he's moving, it doesn't happen. Yeah, so he just has these very thin gloves that he does it with.
Some people are sensitive to metal. Like, I did construction when I was a kid, and getting the nails out of the pouch, my hands would become like arthritic if I kept them in the pouch. I could feel the metal. It affected my bones. I could feel them in my bones.
No fun, man.
It's like a sense.
Feel it in my bones.
Certain metals. It's the reason why some women, when they put necklaces on, it goes green.
Like a copper necklace, sure. That could happen.
Reacts to some people.
Same thing happens with guitar strings or bass strings, where like my buddy, he could come over and play my guitar, and within hours the strings look like they need to be changed again, but I could play my guitar for months with new strings and they would still look brand new. And it's not because the hands are dirty or anything, it just has to do with the chemical reaction, whether it's sweat or yeah,
string killer.
It could be. I did just put new strings on this one though, so these should look all pretty.
Well, and metal strings come with metal complexities.
Yep. And they are complex beasts as well, but they're all nice and shiny still.
It's what's cool about the nylons. Nylons are so much less maintenance.
Well, in some ways, yeah, but they actually, I would say no. I haven't really had any nylon guitars in the house. I have played nylon guitars before, but to me, just thinking about the materials, I would think that metal is susceptible to atmospheric changes as well, but I think nylon would be too in certain ways, whether it's stretching or whether it's humidity or whether it's temperature. Like I would think it would still go out of tune.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but when it comes to the teaching guitars and why they choose to fill schools with the nylon acoustics, it works a lot across that environment.
I think some
There's a
of it would
beauty.
also be that
And
it's
it's
more
easier.
comfortable on the fingers.
Yeah,
Yeah, easier
it's
on the
easier
fingers.
on a starting, a fourth grade kid that's just learning guitar
Yeah.
is much more comfortable with the nylon.
Now the other question is for restringing. I mean, you could probably have a spool of like 1,000 yards of nylon around, whereas you wouldn't necessarily have guitar strings, metal guitar strings around like that. So you could probably get away with a lot of um, workarounds, let's say, on stringing, where you just I just use this
Hacks.
or use this. Yeah, hacks. A fishing
I
line,
hacked my
of a few different
guitar.
fishing line of a few different thicknesses, and all of a sudden you
Oh,
got everything you
dude,
need.
fishing line. You
Yeah.
are a out of the box thinker.
I mean, I have no
Some of
idea if
that
it would be
thick
good or
fishing
not, but
line. Well, you definitely would get a sound.
you would definitely get a sound. Yeah. And that's all the question: is it a good sound? Is it a bad sound? Does it only work for fish? Like maybe the fish only come out and listen to the song. Who knows?
Or does it only work
That's the
on
question.
fish music?
That could be too. You can only do jam band stuff when you're playing that. Now that would be interesting on a 12 string also. But I do like the overtones on a metal 12 string because that is definitely bonus.
Yeah, yeah. On 12 strings, it is all about the steel resonance between the two strings that are complementing each other.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It almost rings like a bell.
Mm-hmm. And actually, that's in a way that's the way the sitar works as well. Where there are on the sitar, it's strings that are not actually being struck that resonate because they're the same. Like you're hitting an E, and other notes that are E's are ringing out just because there's an E ringing.
Was it you who showed me that guitarist who had, they called it a harp? It was like additional strings that were on the guitar.
Yep.
They, they don't play them, but these strings resonate off of whatever's getting played. And
In that case,
actually,
it was a sitar. It wasn't necessarily a harp guitar. That was the sitar one. If they're ringing and you're not playing them, then generally that's the sitar thing going on, where it's a sympathetic vibration. They're
yeah,
tuned to the same note, so they ring out because you're playing these notes. But on some, you would just strum across them, so that you could like be playing what you're playing and then just strum across like a harp. So you get that whole like that sound that you would get when coming all the way down a harp.
yeah, the one that I saw was a sympathetic one, that it was basically just humming behind the guitar,
Mm-hmm.
but really added a nice layer.
Hmm. Nice. That's where that was the brass over there. But what else was we looking for? Clarinet was always a good sound as well.
We're going into the winds.
Into the wind.
See, this is where you start thinking melody.
Mm-hmm. And usually for me in melody, I'm usually thinking pentatonic right off the bat. So if I was doing all white notes, I'd be thinking about that A minor pentatonic.
Well, and an instrument like this really wants to take the lead. Like, you
Definitely.
hear a sound like this, you want it to kind of lead other things. It's rare that you'll hear like clarinets actually playing in the background, accompanying other instruments, like flutes. Certain ones always kind of come out to the front, even when they try to use them for rhythm.
I used to feel that way about trumpet too, but seeing
Oh
more
yeah,
bands
yeah.
playing
Well,
with a
trumpet is as much a blast beat as it can be.
yep,
Jazz trumpets are like blues players.
seeing more horn bands or bands with a horn section, I can definitely see how that horn section all works together as a unit, which is very cool to see also. Because that's like a mini version of seeing an orchestra going on, like they got the little mini orchestra of them doing their thing together.
The brass stab.
Yeah, yeah. And I changed over to the viola.
I do love my strings.
That works too. F major pentatonic. D minor pentatonic.
Or a cello. See, like the clarinet, you start thinking of like melody when you have an instrument like that. Like a viola, I want it to lead a melody.
And again, either whether it's D minor or F major, either way works.
And that could work for Game of Thrones music, RJS. Good to see it.
Aha, there you go. Good to see you, RJ. Gotta go somewhere else from that A, though.
You're starting on A or E?
That was a D minor, F, A minor, and G.
Ooh.
First one was D minor, right?
Oh, D.
And then F major, and A minor.
F major.
Yeah.
Oh wait, F majors. That's F major.
Mhm. There you go.
Good. I got it.
Yep, yep. And that's just 2-4-6-5, but they're all minor 2, major 4,
Again, the
minor
two.
6, major 5.
Starting with the 2
Yeah.
fucks me up. But it is cool.
That's all just D minor pentatonic or F major pentatonic. Mainly that was D minor because I'm focused on that being, even though we're starting it with it as the 2, if I work with that as the minor pentatonic from there. There's the D, F, G, A, and C. Very nice. The reason those chords work so well is because the D minor has the F and the A in it, and then the F has the F, A, and C, and then the A minor has the A and the C and the E. So it's like each of those chords, as we're moving up, you're using 2 of the same notes as you were just using. So that's why they flow so nicely. And then you just drop down by 1.
And for the most part, I feel like I'm in A minor.
Mhm.
Other than
Sure.
that little funky, is it F sharp that comes in there?
F major.
Actually, no, there's no funky notes in that one.
Nope. So that one's all diatonic chords, we would say. They're all in the diatonic key that we're playing in, which technically we're all, they're all related to the key of C major or A minor. A minor is the one that's in the progression we're doing, so I would relate it to that for sure.
And it's all relative in music.
And it is all relative. Because normally, like we were saying, that the one way to describe that would be to say that this is a minor 2, major 4, minor 6, major 5. But we could also describe it starting with the A minor being the minor 1, right? And then we're actually going from the minor 1 to the major 3, to the major 5. Or sorry, to the minor 5. Minor 3, major 5, and then to the 1 and the 7. Because the numbers all switch around when you start doing things in minor. Because that minor 1 becomes the 1.
There can only be one.
Yep. But the other thing that changes is instead of it being the 7 that's the asshole, it's the 2 in a minor key that's the asshole. Because that's where the 7 sits.
Well, the 2's misunderstood. I'm liking it a lot more after tonight.
Yeah. Well, that's the 2 on a major progression. This we're talking about a 2 in a minor key. So if we were playing in A minor, we're talking about the diminished 2, which would be the B diminished. Or the minors.
You had to bring the B in.
See?
You had to bring the B into it.
You see? What kind of an asshole brings the B in? Very cool.
I just want to give it that look.
What about that? G, F, E, C, D. Kind of encapsulate the D. Nice. It's a good bounce. I like it.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna.
Is that pizzicato strings or?
It's a combination Piz and staccato. A little bit of Piz, a little bit of stack.
I was using tremolo at first. Which are nice.
That's more Piz.
And this is the more Piz on my side now.
Sound.
Nice.
I
Soundtrack
see Elmer
stuff.
Fudd hunting for bugs in big tall grass, which
That's
you're
right.
gonna render on, on that AI.
Matter of fact, I have a bunch of them rendering right now. Or actually, no, they were rendering, but they are finished.
Well, wabbit season.
Duck season. eggs in
man.
it. Coming right along.
Elmer's coming for you. Wahahaha.
That's the other question. How loud is that?
Uh, come back 10%. That would probably sound good with the acoustic bass too.
Yeah. Where do you go? Sin bass? No. Slap bass? Fretless.
Or nice and slow.
There you go. Haven't tried the Barry sax.
I think I could turn this into some dance music too.
Now that's low.
Ooh, ooh.
Bassoon. There it is.
Oh, I can hold this one, huh? Ah, can riff off that shit. That's the kind of shit that you can use in Game of Thrones.
A little harp action. There's 2 octaves of triads.
It's like going up to heaven with the harp, but it's long, hard journey. Gotta smooth that one.
Rello's was right. That's a driving tune for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, Outrun.
It's got some Knight Rider to it, some Outrun to it. And Ange is right. We're gonna have to wrap it up soon,
Oh yeah.
but
Otherwise,
there'll be time for more fun other days as well.
well, that was a fun journey through 2. I have a big
Yep.
appreciation for 2 now.
Nice.
Both
And on
in
our next
Renner and
episode, we'll
Mason.
visit 6 and 3.
Well, 3 I think is next.
3's next. Yep. That would only be fair. And for that one, we might have to bring in a guest, bring in Ange, because 3 is her favorite. So she'll have to
Yeah.
come in and sing the praises of 3 for us.
She'll have to be a 3 consultant.
Yep. And let us know all the benefits of the 3, because that is important. But thanks again for joining us for another episode of Talking Shhh I.T.
Not
We
everyone.
will be back next time.